Welcome to the Freight Agent Insider Podcast, hosted by Levi Van Pay.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Freight Agent Insider. Quick show notes for everybody watching and or listening. It's always greatly appreciated if you go to our Spotify, our YouTube page, and for you younger folks out there on TikTok, we are on TikTok. You can find all of it at Freight Agent Insider. Subscribe, like, and also leave comments, 5-star reviews. It's all very, very helpful. New episode every Monday on those platforms, 9 a.m. Central Time. Today's going to be a good one. I know we typically are talking with agents, but today we have a big brokerage owner of Wheelhouse Logistics out in Oakland, California. Travis Dodge, everybody. Travis, how you doing today, man?
Good, Levi. Thanks for having me, man.
Excited to have you here today.
Yeah. I got to correct you. We're not a big brokerage by any stretch of imagination. So.
We're growing though, right? We're getting there.
We're trying. Yep.
That's excellent, Travis. So, and again, we like to offer as much information to the folks listening to this as possible, which is why we are talking with you, because being an owner of a brokerage is a little bit different than owning an agency. How did you get into this? Have you always just wanted to be a brokerage owner? Do you have experience as an agent, or how did you get to where you got?
Well, I mean, if we go back 11 years, probably 12, 13 years ago, I was selling software to doctors. So I was an outside salesperson in Northern California, going, clinic to clinic, trying to sell electronic medical record software. So had no connection to freight, had never even heard of what a freight broker was. Never heard that term. And I was actually down in San Luis Obispo, California, the Central Coast.
Yeah.
With my now wife. She was my girlfriend at the time. And we're meeting some friends of hers from college. And we were staying there 2-3 days, and actually met she eventually became a mentor of mine, but a gal that was a freight broker. And, we connected that weekend. Again, I had never heard of a freight broker. And just by lucky chance, I met her. And it wasn't for another 18 months or so that we reconnected, and I eventually dove into freight. So went from a W-2 outside sales job to diving in to becoming a freight agent. Never had a salary, never was a W-2 salesperson as a freight broker, went straight into a 1099 freight agency.
What are the big differences between being an agent, which you were at the time, now you own your own company? Huge leap.
It's night and day. So for people that are freight agents that follow your podcast, or maybe, they're W-2, huge differences. When you're a freight agent, you're an outside salesperson. You're 100% commission. You're focused on yourself and growing your book of business that you get commissions on each week, right? So you go out, you find shippers, you book freight, and you collect, either good commissions or high commissions, whatever. You got a lot of agencies that eventually grow and maybe they hire employees, or they recruit sub agents under them, but you're a high paid salesperson, And
That's
so
right.
When I got into, when we opened this up a year ago, it's a huge difference, right? So we have 16 people now. So you're in charge of, you're a leader, you're the owner. So you're managing, you're hiring, you've got to focus on accounting and cash flow, right? Like collecting from your customers and paying your carriers.
That's right.
Increasing your carrier network. You're in charge of HR, you're in charge of, health insurance, like all these things that you don't think about as a freight agent. When I was a freight agent, I would think, okay, I'm making 70% of the split or X amount of the split. If I go out on my own, I get that difference, right? Well, I was in for a rude awakening because, I'm not collecting commissions each week, right? Like any money we make goes back into the business. Like I pay myself a salary, but when I was a freight agent, I would run a little P&L each month, write myself
Yeah.
a check, cash out those commissions, and I was doing well. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
I think that's a big difference, right? And you being on both sides of this, you have the best insight of anybody because there's a lot of agents out there. There's not a lot of true brokerage owners. You said you've got 16 employees. I mean, that's a fairly large operation, I'd say. But yeah, I guess and maybe correct me if I'm wrong on some of this, Travis, but some possible pros of being an agent are going to be the startup capital for sure. There's reduced liability, probably less regulatory burden on you. You're faster to market. There's the back office support's already there. It's commission based, like you said. That could be a pro or a con versus owning your own brokerage. You get 100%. There is no split. You get it all, but there are the costs associated with it, like you're talking about.
I mean, if you're asking, if this is geared towards agents that have been agents for a couple of years and thinking about going in becoming a broker, like I would think long and hard about opening up your own brokerage. In fact, I mean, there's some days where it's like, man, I had it really good.
Yeah.
Like I could have coasted for a couple of years, been fine. And some days like, man, what was I doing? More often than not, I know I made the right decision, but I would think long and hard about becoming an agency. And again, we were a freight agency for 10 years. I was an agent for 10 years, working really, really hard to build a book of business, maintain those relationships. And I did everything cradle to grave. So I had really good carrier relationships. I had good relationships with my customers. I had sub agents that were helping me out. I had employees that I eventually hired that helped me out. So we were doing a lot of the heavy lifting already.
Right.
We had the sales, we had the operations. We were even doing a lot of the collections. We had back office support, but if customers were delayed paying, then we would go to them and say, "Hey, Susie, hey, can you help us out here?" Because we had the relationship. So we felt like we were doing a lot of the heavy lifting, which is one of the reasons why we eventually made the move. But, opening up your own brokerage, it's not as simple as, oh, hey, I'm going to get an extra 30% or extra 40%. Like it's going to be super easy. Like, no, we just wrote a massive check to renew our insurance. It's really, you've got have a lot of money and capital to start your own brokerage. Right. And you need money to pay the trucking companies. Like we don't use factoring, and our plan is to never use factoring. Like you need money to pay these trucking companies. And guess what? Like initially, if it weren't for the relationships we had with the carriers, we would have not even been able to use them, because you've got to have your MC's got to be a year old. You've got to have credit.
Right.
Like if you find these carriers off DAT, they're not working with you.
Right.
Especially
And that's
go ahead.
Key point there. For individuals out there that are looking to start their own operation versus becoming an agent, the age of the MC is actually extremely important. Like you said, carriers and the factoring companies rather will not work with a brand new MC just because of the risk associated with it.
All the major factoring companies, Apex, eCapital, Triumph. I mean, we just got credit with Triumph like a month ago, right? After a year. So most of these factoring companies will not work with you. So, like I said, we had really strong relationships with carriers that I've been working with for years that I would talk to every day. When I told them we were going out on our own, like even they were a little hesitant to offer us credit.
Really?
Our biggest carrier that we send a ton of business to gave me 7-day terms for the first 3 months. They said, "Hey, we'd really like to work with you. We get it, but we've got to protect ourselves. Like we can
It's
only
a tight
offer
leash.
7-day term. So we would get an invoice. We would basically have to send it that day and pay in that day. So
Wow.
that's a huge hurdle to opening up your own brokerage, is establishing credit and being able to work with these trucking companies. If you don't have good credit, you don't have good capital, and you don't have the relationships, good luck.
There's a lot of comparing and contrasting agency versus owning and operating a brokerage. But I want to throw another scenario at you that I just thought about. Over the years, I've onboarded a lot of W-2 brokers to become agents.
Yeah.
The conversation, once they get rolling as an agent, is usually pretty similar in that, wow, Levi, I'm making more money now than I ever have before.
Yeah.
And I'm doing less. Like the other day, I had one of my agents, he was working sun up to sundown as on the W-2 side. And when he texted me, he sent me a picture from the golf course. He said, I've made $1,000 today. I've got nothing going on for the rest of the day. I'm golfing. I've never had this opportunity. So I guess my question is comparing and contrasting not agency versus owning a brokerage, but a W-2 broker. They have a lot on their plates. That's a lot of work. The majority of the ones I know are hour and a half commutes into the office in the morning. They want to be the first ones there, and then they're leaving late at night. What are the big differences between the W-2 freight broker role, which can be also very profitable, and again, talking about owning your own brokerage? There's a lot of those guys that want to jump right into owning their own brokerage.
Yeah. So I've never been a W-2 freight broker. I never worked with one of the big Chicago houses or Chattanooga houses, but if you're in sales at one of those freight brokerages and your job is to go out and find customers, you're not just an account manager, you're not a carrier sales rep, but you go out and you're driving business directed to shippers with these brokers and you're doing it well. Like for me, I think it's a no-brainer decision to jump into being a freight agent, provided you like the business. Right?
It's
like
pretty
provided
important.
You like the business, you want to stay in freight, and provided you don't have a non-compete. You don't have a non-compete, you've been building, you've got freight sales experience, you like it, you're successful. To me, it's an absolute no-brainer, right? The splits you make as a W-2 versus what you could make as an agent are night and day.
Yep.
To your point, you don't have to commute an hour and a half or whatever it is into an office. You've got nobody breathing down your neck and counting your calls. You got nobody saying you've got to hit a certain quota. Like when I was a freight agent, nobody gave a damn how many calls I made. Nobody gave a damn how much freight I booked. They don't care. Like I was here in Oakland, the brokerage I worked for was out of the Phoenix area. Nobody cared. Like if you're doing well out there, great. That's more money for us. If you're not, I don't care. And so if you're independent minded and you can make your calls and you can be disciplined and do what it takes to become successful, it's a no-brainer, But if you're somebody that does require, like you thrive working under somebody and having somebody keep you accountable, then maybe you should rethink about it. But if you're independent, you're a hunter and you can sell.
Yeah.
To me, it's an absolute no-brainer. I mean, the platform I was given as a freight agent, the opportunity I was given, and the meeting my former mentor, it changed my life. Like it was life-changing. Like I could have been a W-2 salesperson in any industry and made decent money.
Yeah.
The platform I was given and the opportunity and just becoming a freight broker and knowing what it was, I mean, it was life-changing, And so, especially if you've got experience and you're successful as a W-2, like the upside is far, far too great. And, I'm kind of rambling here, but you mentioned like at somebody on a golf course, or maybe they're, on an island taking a picture from the swim pool with their laptop. Like, it's not all like that either, right? Like
that's 100%.
Right? Like when I was an agent and I was killing it, I've got 3 screens. I'm doing cradle to grave. I've got my earpiece in. Like I would go into I would work from my house and it's, 6 a.m. I'm confirming pickups. I'm confirming deliveries from the day before.
Yeah.
It's hard work. It's busy work. I'm not even getting, I'm not even taking a shower. Like, I'm in my pajamas. So, and then meanwhile, I've got to also go out and sell. Like it's,
That's right.
it's really hard work.
Yeah.
It's transactional too, in that like you can do the quick math. Like you book a shipment, it delivers. Let's say you got a $500 margin on it. Like you can do the math, right? Like, oh, hey, I just made this much. I just made this much. So now that said, there are agents too that do play golf and create the life they want to. Maybe they don't work with certain types of customers. Maybe they're not out there trying to grow their book and hustle, and maybe they don't do cradle to grave and they've got assistants. So you can make the agency what you want.
Yeah.
That wasn't my life. That was I could go out and golf, but I was checking my phone all the time and
I think you're right. I think I just saw John Rogers on LinkedIn. He's on vacation right now, so he was posting those pictures. The guy's always working. But I think it's a bit of a misconception that it's very easy to do as an agent. You can just go on vacation and make all this money from the beach. Last year, one of my agents who became a good friend of mine, he needed a break because he was just slinging so much freight and it was nonstop. So he went to Florida with his family. And once he got back, I asked him how it went. And he said, my phone would not stop ringing. I couldn't enjoy it. I threw one of my phones into the ocean because I was so pissed off.
Yeah.
And that is, listen, hey, he did get to go on vacation and do the whole agent from the beach thing, but he whipped his phone into the water because it doesn't stop. So there is that side of it too.
You're no longer clocking in and clocking out. You no longer have after hours support. That's a huge issue or a huge challenge when you become an agent. You're on call, right?
That's
like
right.
If you're customers and you work for your customers, let's get that straight too. Like you say, oh, I don't have a boss. No, your customers are your boss. If your biggest customer, that's 30% of your business, is calling you on the weekend and you don't pick up, guess what? They're not going to be a customer long. So
somebody else is calling them.
I was on my honeymoon in Japan. They were a customer of mine for maybe 6 months at the time.
Yeah.
The big dog of that company was like, Travis, if this stuff doesn't deliver on Monday, I'm firing you. I'm in Japan, like with my wife, like stressing out, it's the middle of the night. She's sleeping. I'm, emailing back and forth. Thankfully, they're still a customer and I've got a much better relationship with them. But like you're around the clock on call if you're an agent. So that's one thing you've got to figure out. It's like some agencies will say, hey, we'll cover your business while you're on vacation. Unfortunately, my mentor she would cover my book of business for those first couple of years, which was a huge, huge value add. So, if you're looking to become an agent, like think about, your life after hours, like how are you going to set up your book of business? Cause that's such an important piece. Like you're on call nonstop and it can be tough.
Yeah. Last week I sat down with Ryan Sudam. He's an agent for Armstrong.
Yeah. I'm connected with him. Yeah.
Great guy, good buddy of mine. And he had some great advice for individuals that are looking to become agents. And I imagine it would be the exact same thing as a broker. If you have a family, you have to talk with your family and make sure they are also on board with this, because you're going to be sitting at dinner and you're going to get a call from your customer. You got to pick that phone up, or you're on vacation, or any number of these other scenarios. Everybody has to be on board.
Everybody has to be on board, and especially your partner, right?
Yeah,
they have to be on board.
Interrupting the the honeymoon in Japan, like they
Oh,
they
dude.
gotta know.
Oh, dude. Thankfully I was dating her long before that and had been doing it long before that. So she got it. But yeah, man, what we do I'm telling you, I think there can be a reality show in freight brokerage. I don't know why nobody's done it yet. Like what being a freight agent or freight broker, it's such a unique profession.
It is.
It's nothing like anything I've ever done before. And I've had a lot of jobs before I got into freight. Like it's just a very unique. You've got the carriers, you've got their dispatchers, you've got your customers, you've got the warehouse people loading freight. Like, a lot of these Chicago-based brokerages, they're a different bunch, like there's just so many different personalities involved,
Oh my
and so many
gosh.
different unique circumstances that we deal with. So
Yeah.
it's like when you talk to another freight broker, right? Like, and I don't have a lot of freight brokers around where I live that I talk to, but when I was an agent, if I encountered somebody that was in freight, it's like, oh man, you're a freight broker, or you're in freight, I want to immediately talk to them, and because what we do is so unique, right?
It is. It is.
But yeah, you've got to have the family on board because you're on call 24/7, and if you aren't on call, like if you're not picking up the phone from your customers or if you're not responding to them, you will not keep that business. The good
That's
agents,
right.
they're obsessive.
Yep.
They're picking up the call. They're doing whatever they can to keep their customer. And this is, like a lot of people ask, like I've heard this question asked, if I'm a shipper, why would I use an agent versus like a big name W-2 brokerage?
Sure.
Here's why. Okay. I got into this in my early 30s. I'm 46 now. Okay. It's a weekend. I've got to cover a load. Who's going to work harder to cover a load? Me, who's 100% commission and it's a big customer of mine, or some 22, 23-year-old W-2 kid that's maybe on like,
It's
they're
clocked
8
out.
to 5, like
Yeah.
this kid has no chance. They have
That's
no
right.
chance in beating me and covering a load or doing whatever I need to do. I'm on call 24/7.
That's right.
So like if you work with an agent and you're a large manufacturer or something, like you've got basically an extension of your company going to bat for you on call 24/7.
That's right.
Versus CH or one of these companies that there's no after hour support. They're
That's
not
right.
as vested in you. Like I had so much invested in my customer and their success because I knew if I didn't do my job, they would just go to the next guy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the key takeaway there is make sure that you pick up the phone when your customers are calling, and make sure if you have a significant other, they're on board with this lifestyle, or they will leave. So customers leaving, your spouse is leaving, one of the two. Make sure everybody's on board with this. Travis, we'll switch this up a little bit. I want to ask you a couple questions about Wheelhouse.
Yeah.
You're out in California.
Yeah.
What are your particular customer acquisition strategies? Like, first of all, do you have a niche or sector that you particularly go after pertaining to customers? And then what is your strategy for going after new business?
Yeah. So we have 3 specialties in terms of modes that we go after. I've said this before, like we all beat each other. All brokers beat each other up on truckload.
Yeah.
We beat each other up on 1, 2, 3 dry pallets, LTL. If I'm going into a prospect and they've already worked with 5, 7 different brokers, and like it's really hard to win that business, right? Like I'm not going to go in and say, oh, our truckload pricing's way better. So over time, we started to do a lot of partial truckloads. We own that space, and there's a couple other brokerages that really claim that they do partials more than anybody, and they have better technologies than us. But we do all day, every day, that 5 to 20 pallet space under 30,000 pounds, where we're not using the national LTL carriers, but we're not charging a dedicated truck. So our two
Right.
biggest customers, it's a lot of spot market, 8 pallets, 10 pallets from Northern California to Iowa, 15 pallets to Florida, 10 pallets to Texas. Like we do that. And if our customers do that, or if our prospects do that, like I'm really confident we're going to win the business. And if you're another broker coming out of state, especially trying to get our business that we've been working in the partial truckload space, good luck. You don't stand much of a chance. So you talk about strategy, like what we do. We knock on a lot of doors. We make a lot of phone calls. We ask for a lot of referrals from our customers, but we try to stay in our lane, and we tell prospects we do the partial truckload space really, really well.
Yep.
Okay. We do a lot of temp controlled LTL. Most brokerages just don't know how to do it. They ignore it. Maybe they just use FFE. We do a lot of temp controlled LTL. So we do that really, really well as well.
I didn't know temp controlled LTL existed until I think it was a couple months ago. I was talking with another brokerage owner, a lot like yourself, and he was actually also in California. He does it as well. Might be in your neck of the woods. But yeah, you guys seem to know what you're doing around that stuff. And being in like the Napa Valley area, Travis, are you doing like a lot of wine? Movements of wine and stuff?
Our biggest customers are a few of our biggest customers are longtime wine shippers. So one of my first big truckload shippers was a wine shipper, which also got me into like, let's do bigger stuff instead of focusing on 1, 2, 3 pallet type moves. So we do, we're doing 11 truckloads today out of the Napa area. So I'm 45 minutes from Napa. We do a ton of wine. In terms of commodity, like what commodity we do more than any, it's 100% wine. We do a lot of food ingredients, a lot of packaged food, but that's also, it's really competitive space. I mean, packaged food and ingredients. We all walk into a supermarket, and another thing that changes when you become a freight broker is like you go into a supermarket, we're all checking labels and kind of prospecting, right? Like, but we do a lot of wine, a lot of packaged food, appliances. We've got a big appliance shipper. So but I'll tell you, like, we don't really prospect much on commodity. Because we've got a couple large wine shippers, we've leveraged those accounts to try to get more wine business. And that's just, it just kind of fell in our lap, the wine shippers. But it's more about the mode. We're more targeting when we're going out prospecting for business. It's like mode, right? Like we do a lot of partial truckloads. We do a lot of temp controlled LTL because every broker does truckloads. Every broker does dry LTL. We all go in there and say, oh, we do all this. Like, so how do you separate yourself, right? Like, which is a advice if you're, if you're a broker, a W-2 or a freight agent, like you want to have a real specialty niche. Don't go in there and say you do ocean, air, international, LTL, truckload, hot shot. Like you don't. You don't specialize in all that stuff. And so we try to be very specific in what we do.
That's a really good way to go about it. I like that, Travis. We could probably, like you said, talk about this for a long time, but we're going to keep this moving along. We'll move into our last segment.
Yeah.
And we'll make this pretty quick, Travis, but owning your own operation, this segment is pitfalls and horror stories. What is one thing you could point to that others on the younger side, or if individuals out there are looking to start their own brokerage or become agents, that you can point to and say, don't do this. I've made this mistake and it didn't work out for me.
What mistakes have we made as under our new brokerage?
Could be that. Could be even as an agent back in the day before you open your own operation.
Gosh.
I know you've done things close to perfect, but there's
we've made a lot of mistakes. I mean, we're learning all the time. I made a lot of mistakes as an agent, Um, relationships in this business are so critical,
Yeah.
so critical. And we, you know, all my best friends are guys I grew up with in my small farm town out of the Sacramento area. Like relationships and my friendships are so important. If we
Yeah.
worked together at any point and we had a connection, like you're still my friend. And so one of the big mistakes I made, there's some stuff I would do differently with my transition from my old brokerage to opening up my own brokerage. And naturally there's going to be some hurt feelings when you decide to go out on your own and you're basically taking your book of business over. So I wish I handled certain things, my relationships with my old brokerage, a little differently. I admittedly tried to do things openly and honestly, but I still made mistakes, and so I regret that. Um, you know, I would financially, you want to be very conservative, right? And so you want to make sure you have plenty of capital. I would try to avoid using a factoring company if you can. I mean, not everybody has a $500,000 to float their carriers, starting out, but I would try to raise capital, friends and family. If you don't have the money, try to avoid getting into debt. When you go into this, we're fortunate enough that we came in, we had a little money. We aren't using a factoring company. So I think, you know, I don't know. We're still learning. I mean, we're still making mistakes, but those are the things I could think of, like relationships are important, especially in this business. Everybody knows everybody,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? Like I was telling you earlier, like I'm connected to all these agent recruiters all of a sudden, and it's like the LinkedIn's a very small community of freight professionals, huge industry, but everybody kind of knows everybody. And so, I would try to do things openly and honestly as much as you can. Work your day job as a freight agent or as a broker openly and honestly, and try to maintain good relationships. We treat our carriers really, really well. Like they're friends of ours, we talk to them every day. So your carrier partnerships are super important. And so you want to treat the drivers, owner ops, dispatchers, with a lot of respect. I mean, four of my operations guys come from carriers we used to work with, and so I think treating your carriers with respect is super important too.
Yeah, operate with integrity and move with grace. Like you said, this is a huge, huge industry, but it's a small community. Everybody knows each other. Travis, is there any last advice, tips, anything you've got for the listeners out there before we wrap the show up?
I mean, it's a very agent-driven podcast that you have. I love what you're doing, and
Thanks, man.
I think a lot of people that listen are either agents or probably are thinking about becoming an agent. Like you got to go out there and hustle. The best agents are the ones that are obsessive about the sales and knocking on doors and cold calling and leveraging existing customers. Like if you're thinking about becoming an agent and you're not very successful in sales in your current brokerage, like I wouldn't do it. So like the first thing is you've got to drive sales as an agent. So my advice to you as an agent, existing agent, or think about just you go out there and sell. All the other stuff will play itself out.
Very well said, Travis. Thank you again so much for joining the show. We'll have to circle back in a year and see how Wheelhouse is doing and what's changed.
Yeah, man. Let's keep in touch, man. I'll shoot you my cell phone and let's keep in touch. It's good talking to you.
I appreciate you. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next week, 9 a.m. Central, for another great episode.
All right.
See you soon.
Thanks, Levi.